Great. Welcome everyone to our second COVID Communications Community Conversations. I'm Senator Mary Washington. I represent the 43rd Legislative District. And today we are joined by a number of really excellent folks to talk about this topic of issues that are related, workers, employers, local businesses. First of all, I want to extend my great hope that all of you are doing well. Know that we're here to support you and that we're here to make sure that we continue to outreach to each other and to communicate. I need to remind you that you're muted. If you have any questions, you can enter your question into the box that's on the right-hand side of the screen, and you would click the red arrow. And during the question and answer portion, we're going to unmute individuals to ask their questions. Some questions I'm just going to ask directly. We'll read a question, or someone from my staff who's helping to organize the meeting today will have you raise your hand and type your question in. I'm going to remind everybody that we're recording this conversation so that we can share it afterward. But again, our intent is to give you the information that you need for us to manage this crisis together, but also to not just manage the crisis period, but also to think about how can we use the lessons, the opportunities for collaboration, the opportunities for finding out where there are gaps in our systems to improve things for ourselves and our families, and in this context, our businesses. We're joined by Secretary of Commerce Kelly Schulz. She's with the Maryland Department of Commerce. She's going to share updates from her agencies about their efforts to support businesses across the state and what resources are available. Also, I'm sure some of you still have some questions around unemployment, around benefits, and I know Secretary Schulz is very familiar with that topic as well, so that she or her staff will be able to support some questions that you might have. Second in line is Denise Gilmore. Maybe you could raise your hand. She's the field director for AFSCME, Maryland Council 3, and she's going to provide some insight into what some of the challenges that workers are facing in Maryland throughout our crisis, and what did they need to respond and what kind of supports are needed. Third is Jamila Benyu. She's the owner of Oyen Handmade. It's a family-owned and operated small business in the 43rd District. She's going to share a bit about her experience of running a small business during COVID-19 and the changes she's had to make, and perhaps also some recommendations or ideas she might have for us policymakers to how we can improve conditions for small businesses. Fourth, we have Dante Daniels. He's the owner of Collins Seafood and Grill. He's going to talk a bit about how the restaurant industry has had to adapt to these times, what the challenges are, what supports restaurants need. He's also located, it's newly located in the 43rd District. He'll tell you the location and all that. I believe we also have on the line, he had to actually run out and do a delivery, so he didn't get a chance to get back to the brewery in time so that we could see his face, but he's going to be on the line. This is Eddie O'Keefe from Peabody Heights Brewery, and he's going to explain.
Hey guys.
Oh, what? Is he here? Okay,
yeah,
great.
I'm here.
Oh, good. Sorry, I didn't see you. There you go.
No, it's all good.
Excellent. The impact of COVID-19 on his operations and the business and how they're managing to continue to do business. In fact, I just went and bought a case myself there last week, so thanks for being open. Brendan Dorr, wave your hand. He's one of the owners of a new bar called Old Goucher. It's called Dutch Courage Gin Bar. He was gaining quite a bit of attention prior to COVID-19, and Brendan's going to talk about how they're adapting. He's also the president of the Baltimore Bartenders Guild, and I believe they're also forming some organizations and some advocacy organizations for all people that are working in the restaurant industries. So thank you all so much for being here. We've got a full deck. So each person is going to talk briefly, but I really want to make sure that we have a nice chunk of time for a question and answer period. So we're going to kick off with Secretary Schulz, and you could give us our updates. And I know you have to leave during the last half hour, and you're going to have some staff. Could we please remind everybody to please mute yourself because there's a little bit of feedback. Okay, Secretary Schultz, you can start. We can start with you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely, Senator. I think that was your polite way of saying that keep it short.
Well,
I think that's what I heard you say.
Well, you see who's on the call. Like all of us, we have our whole thing that we give, but you're on the call, so you see the focus that we're having here. Workers, people
Absolutely.
all around. So,
absolutely.
To these folks.
Nobody has ever complained that I've given too short of remarks. So I'm going to go with that right now. But it's great to see your face, and our friendship goes many years back. So thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate it. And as you stated at the beginning, I do hope that everybody listening in as well, their family as well, their coworkers are well, and their community is making through this very tough time. So wanted to just very briefly let you know, obviously there were some big announcements yesterday that the governor had about the reopening and the beginning phases of recovery. And the Department of Commerce is 100% a part of recovery. We understand what the business community has needed, what they need now, what they're going to need in the future. And I guess what I will just start out with is our mission has always been to be able to expand and grow businesses in the state, but also to attract new businesses to the state. And our mission has sort of taken on a different path over the course of the last couple of months. Now we're just trying to be able to help businesses sustain themselves and to be able to provide those resources. And we understand how difficult it is right now. So 200 plus employees at the Department of Commerce are working day in, day out, 7 days a week in order to be able to complete that mission. And we are. It's different than what we've had to do in the past, but it's still our mission, which is these businesses in the state of Maryland. And this is, I'll also just state this about my team members in the Department of Commerce. And I can also say the same as my former colleagues over the Department of Labor. I have never seen individuals with such extraordinary determination and dedication to the mission. And it's an imperfect situation in which we're in, but it's the situation in which we are in. And all of the state employees are working tirelessly because they are dedicated to making a difference. And it may not be seen by the general public all the time, but I can tell you that I have and I will continue to stand by the efforts that are made by our teams here within these state agencies that I've been working with. So with that, we're pulled into this idea of recovery and the beginning stages of recovery, right? The beginning phases of where we are. And at the Department of Commerce, back at the end of March, sometime around then, we happened upon a report, an American Enterprise Institute report that was put together by a gentleman by the name of Scott Gottlieb. And our Office of Tourism started the conversation with our tourism industry people and just kind of an informal level in order to be able to bring about the conversation of what would happen for them to shut down and then to come back into the recovery and reopening stages. We decided to make that a formal process and put together advisory groups. We now have 13 advisory groups who have submitted initial reports about reopening, basically on what the hurdles are to reopen for some of these industries and what the best practices that we have seen across the nation and internally within the Department of Health, some guidance that we've received from the CDC. What these industry groups are looking at is ways to be able to get their facilities and their employees ready for that turnkey type of operation to get back into business 100% full time. So on May 1st, we delivered initial draft reports to the governor's office so that they could review them and so that the Department of Health could also review them to make sure that we were working in safe and healthy standards for the governor to be able to review for his beginning phase one of his recovery, his roadmap to recovery. And I'm happy to say that last week, some of those groups were able to provide that guidance to the very, very first pre-phase one kind of groups, which was the outdoor recreation, the Gulf industries, the marinas for the boatings, and what that guidance was. Last night, when the governor made his announcement, we were able to provide additional guidance on a couple of other different industries, which was the retail industry, the manufacturing industry, some of those personal service industries like hair salons and barbershops, just so that we could start that process of what that beginning guidance looks like. And I believe on the screen you have one email, which is businessexpress.maryland.gov, and that has all the information for businesses if they are looking for additional information of any resources that the department has and all of our sister agencies have. And I think more importantly, the questions that any business has, and not even just questions for the Maryland Department of Commerce, and the email address is secretary.commerce@maryland.gov, but we have all of our sister agency representatives that are also monitoring that. So any business related questions about how to move forward during this crisis, someone can send their questions there, and then we're happy to be able to participate. But all of the industries that are starting to reopen and are looking for specific guidance, they can go to, and I'm going to say it a couple of times just so that everybody has it, open.maryland.gov/back-to-business. And that's open.maryland.gov/back-to-business. And that's a great resource that provides folks with the governor's executive orders. It also provides them with the guidance and best practice pages that we have put together for industry-specific groups that may want to find out what they can do now or in the future about preparing their facility, their employees, and the general public for getting back open as we move through this multi-stage process. And with that, I'll just turn it over to the next speaker, Madam Senator.
Also, and then Secretary, if you could, are there a couple of grants or some specific programs? You don't have to describe them, but maybe you can either give them to us or have someone who's online enter it into the chat box, because we know that there are some loan programs, there's some grant programs that your office is administering, and I know that that's something that there are people on the line that are interested in. So if you could just provide that, we'll go to the next speaker, but if you could provide that, that way we can either announce it at the end or when we start the question and answer period. So
that's right. Those application processes are closed, but we continue to perfect the process for those grant and loan applications. If anybody has a question as to where their application is in that process, please, please, please send your question to secretary.commerce@maryland.gov, and we can look at those specific applications. But I think the overall general theme that we're telling our applicants and our constituents across the state is that there were over 30,000 applications for the grant program. There's $50 million funded for the grant program, which will cover about 5,000 applicants, and there were over 20,000 applicants. Right. So on that first come, first served basis, we're looking at the first 2 days-ish of funding for that. We left the application process open in the event that we are able to get additional federal funds or funding from different sources in order to put through there. But we continue to look and verify and approve those applications as eligible in the event that we get different funding that comes through.
And that was my expectation, that we're going to have phases of this. So I just wanted to make sure that the folks in our district and the folks that are in this call, who are looking for that support can get it. So speaking of workers, our next speaker is Denise Gilmore. She's Field Director for AFSCME Maryland Council 3. Take it away.
Sure. So first and foremost, Senator Washington, thank you for having this panel. I think you were absolutely right in your opening. The way that we begin to fix and improve, our responses by having platforms like this to speak up. So, really appreciate, the opportunity to talk here. A little bit about AFSCME Maryland. So we represent, state employees here in Maryland. We represent the employees at the public colleges and universities here in Maryland. And, I think the story that our members have to tell is, twofold. The first is the realities of, coming to work every day as essential employees. I think, what they're experiencing is very similar to, what non-state employees, who are essential workers right now are experiencing on the front lines of this. I think if this pandemic has really shown us anything, it's really taking a look at the type of work that are and especially who is carrying those essential functions right now, to keep our state going. All our members want, I think any essential employee wants is to be able to show up to work and be safe, and know that there's a plan in place to help with ensuring that both they're safe, but also certainly the people that they represent and are servicing are safe, and then they want to return home safely. And I think we've seen with this pandemic that essential workers are really part of that high risk group, right? If we're looking at where the COVID-19 infections are coming from, it's really this group that's continuing to go into work. So I want to also say certainly thank you to everyone who's performing those duties. But specifically to our members, right now we're facing we're still facing shortages of PPEs. We have hospital workers who are wearing gowns for 1 to 2 weeks at a time, or wearing T-shirts that have been sewn as face masks over their face, even though the CDC is advising against that in the healthcare setting. We have shortages still of tests. Our members are desperately seeking and asking for tests. Certainly we represent 24/7 facilities, and with the state prisons, with our youth facilities, our mental health facilities. It's really hard to show up to work every day and not know if you're an asymptomatic carrier, not know if the people next to you can potentially be carrying this. So they're continuing to really demand tests out there. I mentioned this before, but plans, it's not okay to assume that 800 different managers and 800 different work sites are going to, come up with plans on their own volition. We really are continuing to push to make sure that, all of our agencies are putting those directives out to make sure that they're transparent plans to keep people safe. And then finally, pay and recognition for the hazardous work that they're coming in. I was happy to see I think Senator Warren had the Essential Worker Bill of Rights out there that called for hazard pay. I mean, I think that's certainly an important component to keeping people to show up during this crisis. But I would just say the second part of what our members are seeing, they're in a unique position, obviously, as public servants and government employees right now. I think we have a lot of Marylanders who are accessing state government or in need of state government services, maybe for the first time, if it's certainly a small business owner, for instance, trying to access the programs that Secretary Schultz was just talking about, or Marylanders who are experiencing unemployment for the first time, and from our members' perspective, this pandemic response in Maryland is also about what is the response that they're getting from their state government right now. We want to continue to work with whoever is willing to work with us to make sure that we're providing the best state government response we can right now. Because, unfortunately, I mean, look, I was on the phone earlier with a, Department of Labor employee who, revealed to me that, he cries sometimes when he's on the phone with, people that are, reaching out for help with him because, the stories are so heartwarming and just because of the, issues that have gone on there, he can't help. So, I think moving forward out of this pandemic, we certainly hope that there are some permanent initiatives taken to make sure workers are safe and can maintain their safety. There's, I know the federal level, they're trying to get some OSHA regulations that are actually enforceable on this stuff. I know there's been interest of doing that here in Maryland, Senator Washington. So I'd love to talk to you about that, before the next session. I'll just conclude by saying that, I really, the second part of this is making sure that we've got a government that's responsive and that we're continuing to keep people employed. So thank you for the opportunity, and, we appreciate everybody that's on this call.
Absolutely, and thanks for reminding us of the state workers, as Secretary Schultz said in her opening remarks. We know that you all are working hours and hours and hours, and you are hearing so many Marylanders at our lowest points, and just we really have to think about how we're taking care of you. So just know that we deeply appreciate it. So next is Jamila Bennu, who's the owner of Oyen Handmade. Take it away. I guess we have to unmute you. Well, hold on. We were just talking, I promise.
Is this together?
Yes,
we
got
should all be such pros at teleconferencing at this point. It's completely embarrassing that I just did that. Hello, everyone, and good evening. I'm Jamila Bennu, and yes, as Senator Washington just said, my company is Oyen Handmade. We manufacture personal care products. Shampoo, conditioners using food-grade ingredients, mainly focused on highly textured hair and dry skin. And one of the things that was immediately clear to us is that I think that this crisis has highlighted for a lot of us as small business owners, as consumers, as community members, all the fault lines in our communities, the ways in which it's highlighted different aspects of equity, different aspects of access. And this goes all the way from, do we live in a neighborhood where there's a well-stocked grocery store, all the way to if we're a business owner, do we have an existing relationship with a bank who can process a PPP loan for us? I think it really has highlighted some of the fault lines in our society. And I think another thing that has happened is it's really highlighted the ways in which our communities can support and shore each other up. I've seen amazing examples of people coming together, of businesses coming together, of small business owners trying to pivot to fill the gaps in PPE manufacturing, like really trying to climb up these learning curves to stop manufacturing one thing and start manufacturing an entirely other thing, which is no small feat, even in the best of times, and to do it like kind of under this kind of pressure, both economically and socially and emotionally. I really take my hats off to us as a community, to us as a state, for the ways in which we've really tried to show up for each other. Secretary Schultz, you mentioned the dedication of the state employees, like the way that the state response has been, like, I think it's shining on a national stage. I'm really proud to be here in Maryland and thankful to be in a state that's taking it seriously and really working to keep its citizens safe. And there are many other industries and verticals where people have been going above and beyond. I worked with 2 different banks that were both local or regional banks to try to process the PPP loan, both the Harbor Bank and First National, and both of them, like, bankers were calling me on Saturday mornings, like to try to get documentation in. Like, this is not a normal circumstance, and people were like really ramping up to try to fill in the gaps that have become apparent, and I'm really thankful to be able to experience that side of it as well. On the policy side of it's wonderful to be on the call with people who work on policy. You are used to thinking in very macro ways. My experience as a small business owner is very is on a different scale, you know? And so all I can say is, you know, experientially, we were able to apply for and receive a PPP loan, which was huge and will be an incredible buffer for us as we manage like this kind of this moment of economic uncertainty. There's a huge amount of uncertainty right now. And some of the things that made it possible for us to access that loan, and I know that many other small businesses have not been able to, but things like having payroll, I know that small sole proprietors have kind of been left out of that opportunity. Many of the service providing industries have had a huge difficulty in accessing that opportunity. And I know that here in Baltimore, there have been kind of additional and supplemental programs put in place to try to support geographic areas that were especially hard hit, to support business types that were especially hard hit. The service providers, food service, the industries that had to close their doors, and watching them pivot to pickup models or delivery models or catering models and things has been just inspiring because like just watching kind of the entrepreneurial imagination at work has been really inspiring as well. I think I'm gonna let some of the other small business owners speak, and then maybe we can circle back to some other questions, but yeah.
Awesome, thank you, thank you. Mr. Daniels, owner of Collins Seafood and Grill, it's your turn.
All right, good evening, everyone. Senator, thank you for inviting me here. Certainly, you know, it's an honor. You know, we have a restaurant located in Randallstown, and then we have a new restaurant right there in the Loch Raven Shopping Center. That's that's right. You know, we should be open, you know, hopefully right at the beginning of the month because of the pandemic that really, you know, slowed everything down. Right in the middle of us getting ready to open, and it's been tough. I mean, you know, to go from, you know, carry to, you know, a full-fledged restaurant that seats, you know, 170 people to, you know, strictly carry out. But, you know, it's what we have to do. And, you know, we were able to pull together, and I was able to still maintain my management staff and all of my salaries and, you know, a few employees, because we have at the Randallstown location, we have 28 employees. You know, we were looking to do the same at the Loch Raven, you know, location. They both are pretty much the same size. And, you know, so we applied for the PPP just as Jamila did, and it did come through for us, you know, a little late, but, you know, it came through. So we were able to bring 12 employees back over the last 7 days. So, you know, we're grateful, you know, for that. The new restaurant, again, should be opening up at the end of the month. So we seem to be, you know, moving forward, you know, in this process, you know, that hasn't been easy. But, you know, we've had a lot of support, you know, from the communities in both our locations, and, you know, people, you know, coming from east to west just to support us so that we can get east open. So it's been, you know, it's tough. You know, we still need, I think, to work on the systems for the small businesses. You know, it was tough, you know, to go well over a month when you have, you know, larger business that can certainly carry themselves for that point of time and could get their PPP, you know, a little bit later versus, you know, people like the small business, like, you know, us that's on the line now. And, you know, so that was a little bit, you know, disheartening, but, you know, as Americans and, you know, just, you know, a first time entrepreneur, it's hard. And we just had to continue to keep our head down and just keep fighting. And that's what we're going to do until, you know, we make it through this pandemic, because we are feeling it.
And you raised, I think, something important, and I know there's the model of the first come, first serve, but there, as we go through this, maybe in the future, we think about size and need and catering to, and some of the things that Jamila raised around access to banking and all those types of things. So thanks for raising all those. Next, we're going to hear Eddie O'Keefe. Are you on? Are you still on, Eddie?
I'm here.
Okay, great. So take it away. Peabody Heights.
Yeah. So I'm with Peabody Heights Brewery. We're located at 30th and Greenmount. We're in the Waverly Able Charles Village neighborhood. Um, we've definitely had some serious changes in business, but we're incredibly lucky because we have an incredibly supportive community. We're also a business that can still operate in some capacity. So I think what's really amazing, and to follow up with some of the other small business owners, is that I think people are realizing, when their push comes to shove and when they're locked into, small places and they live in cities, that they can access all of the things that they need through all their local businesses without having to go to, not even necessarily having to go to like a large commercial grocery store or even having to go to like a Walmart or a Target. I think it's brought a lot of really amazing people out. I know that not everybody can always support businesses at the moment just because it's, finances are tough right now, but I'm sure everybody's the same way. But everybody's been, incredibly supportive. I know that everybody's had to pivot and completely change their business, so it's been tough. We've had also the crime in our area has definitely spiked a little bit, so we had a couple break-ins. So that was kind of a bummer. But it's it is what it is. It's tough out there for a lot of people, so you just gotta keep your chin up and keep chugging along. Also to my other small business, people that are out there, Baltimore Development Corporation has been amazing. They've been super supportive. They're constantly reaching out and checking on us. There's actually a grant for $15,000 that's out there. Please apply. The last date to apply is tomorrow. It's not a first come first served basis. It's based on a couple other things. So definitely apply. Also, we're in another pivot. We're also hoping to start building out face shields sometime next week. Yeah, so that's fun. Yeah, so we've our company or our side business is gonna be called Origami Face Shield. So hope to look for that in the next couple of weeks.
Can you repeat the name of the company there, of the name that it used to be called?
Yeah, so it's gonna be called Origami Face Shields.
Okay.
So it's it'll make sense in a couple of weeks when you guys see the product. But we hope to donate a portion to first responders. We'll also offer on our site for people to to donate, to buy a mask and donate it to first responder, and also small proceeds will go back to those guys as well. I know a lot of other breweries are also helping support. I think Brendan will probably cycle into how he is helping industry workers. We hope to release a beer called Enduring Friendship in the next couple of weeks to support Baltimore Relief Fund as well. So that we should see something in about a month from us. But yeah, that's about it for me.
All right. Well, thank you. And thanks for that. And yeah, Peabody, all of these businesses, all of you are so engaged in our communities and you're part of the community. And you're exactly right. There's been this talk around shopping local, but we're really seeing the necessity of that. And so that could be a good outcome here. Okay, Brendan, wrap it up for us. And Dutch Courage Gin Bar. You can see we had a plan. We kind of how we evolved this agenda.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me on this panel. I appreciate it. So yes, my name is Brendan Dorr. I am one of the owners here at Dutch Courage. We opened on December 28th of 2019. So literally only a couple months before all this has happened. So it's been quite a wild ride. I feel like the wild ride of building out a business and then opening and then going right into this, just my energy and stress level and anxiety just has been like this for about a year. So I feel like life is really kind of always normal at this level of stress and anxiety, which is kind of odd to say, not very healthy, I'm sure. But yeah, we've definitely really pivoted. It took a few days to figure out how to pivot. I think probably like so many small business owners, there was probably a lot of shock to our systems as to how to make the transition to keeping our businesses afloat. But we really tried to pivot hard and figure out, okay, we can be a bottle shop, we can sell spirits to go. And then as things evolved, we were able to sell cocktails to go, which was really a great opportunity for a lot of bars and restaurants out there. And then we even started doing special features and out of the box features. We had a really great gift in the way of some former bartenders' family reached out and said they make these amazing herb boxes, and they have been a super successful seller for us, which has really helped us as well. We have applied for grants. We have been able to receive some grants. We've applied for the PPP, and to be perfectly honest, as a new business saddled with an immense amount of loan, we have yet to decide whether or not the PPP is right for us. It's definitely a big decision. All of this is a big decision to make, and everybody has to make the decision that they feel is right for them. But now we're starting to look to what the future holds for us. What will be the restrictions for bars and restaurants? We don't know yet, so we can only speculate. Things that we are planning for is how best to make sure that our staff and our guests are really safe, through making sure that obviously we're all going to try to continue to socially distance and space out our tables and chairs and things like that and keep things as clean as possible. But we're looking at things like disposable or even digitally accessible menus. And we are fortunate in the way that probably like Eddie at Peabody Heights, we have an outdoor space, which will be very useful for us and to allow more guests to come in, hopefully, but keep people spread out more. So that's it pretty much for Dutch Courage. For the Baltimore Bartenders Guild, which is something else I run and operate, the Baltimore Bartenders Guild is a nonprofit organization for bartenders and industry professionals, whether you're a rep or you're an ambassador of a brand or you're a working bartender. It's just a way for us to network, get to know each other, know what opportunities are out there, and kind of grow the community together. I've been running this for the past 10 years. But we, about 2 years ago, maybe about a year and a half ago, we started a relief fund for bartenders when they're sick or injured on the job, or maybe not even on the job, but money is tight. So we started that fund, but never knowing that we would ever need the amount of money that we need now. We had a very small amount of money in that account, a separate account from our normal account. And we decided to just go ahead and put a lot of money from our regular account into our relief fund account. And in April and May, we released, each month we released $10,000 to our members, where we were able to give up to $500 to individual bartenders, basically applying for kind of like a grant from the Bar Guild. I think the first month we got about 12 or so people. The second month we got 20 people who we were able to give $500 to. So we were able to raise extra funds through donations, through special events. We actually have a special event coming up in about a week where a brand is going to be donating spirits to do an online tasting. You make a donation and you kindly get a tasting sample and then we're going to jump online and have a tasting. But then local, some of the local brands like Old Line and Sagamore Spirits have made some really nice donations, doing bottle features, where those bottle features, the sales, all the profits from those features are going either to the Bartenders Guild, and that's the Sagamore Spirits bottles that we're selling, or Old Line is going to the Baltimore Restaurant Relief Fund, which is also a really great organization that has been built up by a gentleman in the city. And that's raised, their goal is to raise, I think, $150,000 to be able to give out in grants and loans to all the restaurants and bars in Baltimore who would apply. So there's a lot of really awesome things happening. It's amazing what we can all do when we put our minds to it. It's just a crazy time right now, and I think you just got to keep moving. So that's kind of where we are right now. I also want to thank all the Bar Guild officers for all the hard work that they are doing. They're doing a lot of work right now and really making it a lot easier on me to be able to focus on my business. So thank you to all of them.
All righty. I know Secretary Schultz, are you having to dip off and leaving a person on, or are you able to stay for the Q&A period? Because we're going to jump into that, or what's your thought?
I'm going to stay with you, Mary.
All righty, great, good, good, good. Okay, so just to remind you, this is the
I
part.
may regret this later, but I'm going to stay for now.
No, you won't. We're all working this out together. We're all figuring this out together. So just a reminder on the Q&A, if you have a question, just type your question in the box on the right-hand side of your screen. And I don't know if we'll get to the unmute part, but we'll definitely read your question. And if we don't get to your questions during this conversation, please feel free to email my office. We will respond to anybody that sends in the question. And if you have a particular question to a particular panelist, we'll make sure that they get that question. So you actually sort of, the first question, as I let people get a chance to think through their own, I'm just going to say, you know, there's been this lifting of the stay-at-home order. I guess we're now actually calling it as safer at home, and starting tomorrow. And I wanted to ask, what does that mean for workers? And for each of you on the panel, just real briefly, what are some of your thoughts about this phased-in reopening? What's some impact on your business? What questions might you have that maybe the secretary could take back, or what questions do you want to pose to me, to anybody else? So who wants to take a quick? Now, I am a teacher. I can just call on some people.
I'm going to raise my hand then, Madam Senator.
Okay.
I'll just start out by saying that you know, obviously part of recovery and reopening cannot exist unless we have employees that are going to come back to the workforce. So we fully recognize that, and being able to fully make those workers comfortable with coming back to the workforce, and quite honestly, making the general public feel comfortable coming back, is a critical part of economic recovery. So if businesses want to go to the Back to Business website that I had discussed earlier, open.maryland.gov/back-to-business, that will also bring you not only to some best practices for how to prepare your facility, your employees, et cetera, but there's also a pledge on that site. And it's a Maryland Strong Back to Business pledge, where business owners can read the pledge, and it's very simple. It says that they're going to create an environment that allows physical distancing between individuals. 6 feet is recommended to the extent possible. Ensure the place of business is routinely clean, and encourage our employees to frequently wash their hands. Provide flexibility to our employees. Provide training and education, and clearly communicate policies and procedures to our employees. Reduce and disinfect as many high-touch surfaces as possible, and continue to follow additional guidance from the CDC and the Maryland Department of Health. So it's up to the business owners, in my opinion, in order to create that safe and healthy work environment. Remember, I come from the Department of Labor, so the OSHA requirements are very keen to me. And the more we can make our employees comfortable with coming back to the work environment with pledges like this, that a business owner can acknowledge and to have out there for their employees and general public, the better off I think we'll be when we get to the additional recovery phases.
Thank you for that. And then I'm glad you stressed the importance of being safe. I mean, I have a public health background, so from a public health perspective, you know, we haven't had the decline, and then we're looking for resurgence. And so as people open up, they may give just because we are able to open up doesn't mean that we're past the pandemic, and that we still don't have a cure, and we still don't have a vaccine. And so I think it is really important that we make sure that all businesses, or anyone who chooses to be open, gets really clear instructions and support, whether it's access to all the materials that they need to create safe environments. But other folks. Oh, actually, I have a quick question. They want to know where your bar is located, where Dutch Courage is located. That's a basic question.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, so Dutch Courage is located at 23rd and Charles Street in Old Goucher. Our address is 2229 North Charles Street.
Okay, great.
And
right, so
we are open, and currently as the bottle shop, we are open daily from 12 to 6 p.m. We're not crazy busy, so we just allow people to walk in. Our front doors are open, so you don't have to touch any doorknobs. And we just ask everyone not to touch anything when they come in, so we can keep the space very clean. We only really ask people, if they're going to touch anything, touch the counter where you're going to make the transaction with us, so we can regularly sanitize that spot.
And we make sure that everyone is covered, mouth is covered and all that.
Absolutely. Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Other thoughts about what you might need, or what you anticipate, or does this make a difference to you at all? Are you going to are you going to change at all? Yeah. I guess Jamila, yeah, Dante, what do you think? Oh, your mic, I can't, there you go.
Okay, I'm back in.
Now
I
you can hear.
think for ourselves, and or for myself as a restaurant owner, one of the, some of the key things, we know that when they do open the units back up, or the restaurants back up, that, there's easily, going to be probably 50%, capacity. So we already started marking, and setting up, not just 6 feet distance, but 12-foot, distance between each table, just to take that extra precaution so that the guests can feel even more safe, that way, because we're asking guests to come into the, the restaurant to sit down and eat. And that's going to be scary for some people. That's going to take some time. So we want to do better than 6 foot. We want to, extend that to 12 foot. That's Collins policy, at this time. And because our restaurant is large enough to do that, we'll be able to do that at 50% capacity, or whatever the governor, put out, if it's 50 or 25%. And again, some of the things that Brendan was talking about, we're going to have, people at the door, opening the doors for the guests so that they don't have to touch anything, coming in. We've already incorporated the face masks, and we actually brought face masks with Collins face masks. So if the, some of the guests that, if they want to, buy that, they'll be able to buy that, because we do have, quite a bit of support, and we've already started selling them. So they're pretty happy, and only at cost, not for profit. So.
So I guess I wanted to ask Denise that somebody wrote, well, what happens if I get sick when I return to work? So there's if you're required to work and the business is opened up and someone gets sick, that's just their question. What happens?
Yeah, I think in discussing, I mean, first, I want to commend the other folks that are on this panel. I mean, I heard each of you talk about, plans and proactive plans on how keeping, how to keep people safe, and that's such a crucial step in keeping workers safe. It's it's the same way that a flight attendant, for instance, shows where all the exit doors are before the plane takes off, not while it's crashing. Like, it's very important to do that, and so I commend that. Full admission, I'm a little biased just because of the nature of my work, like every single day. Unions, not just, our union, but all unions are in the position of fighting to make sure that, employees who show up to work, are protected from being sick, or if they do get sick, have the protections that they need, to not go without a paycheck, for instance, or have to worry about infecting, other people. And so, I think when we start talking about reopening, and especially if we do it before we have, testing capacity, contract tracing capacity, PPEs, right, method to enforce, all of the things that OSHA is recommending right now, that the CDC is recommending, that NIOSH is recommending, we're certainly concerned that that's exactly what's going to happen, right? We're going to bring people potentially back, to work, and we know that this virus has, been, it's disproportionately affecting people too. That, it could potentially delay, the recovery, certainly. And so, look, I think we all have to trust the public health experts, right? And really, follow their guidance and hope that the decisions as a state, that we make as a state are based on those best public health practices. But I can't stress enough that, without having the pieces in place to keep workers safe when they go back to work, we're not actually doing anything to, help us get out of this crunch. We can't put the cart before the horse here. Like, we really do need to make sure we have all those necessary protections to keep people safe. And, again, just where I sit, again, we're with state employees, right? And it's certainly always been my opinion that state government should be the model employer for a lot of reasons. And, but some of the fights we have to have on a daily basis are, still very frustrating. So, it starts with certainly who's in charge and who's on top. So for the, small business owners, you guys are giving me a lot of hope on this call. I appreciate that, but we want to see that, I think we have a long way to go before we have that kind of commitment between, at worker safety.
Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
so and I appreciate that 100%, and I just encourage everyone to look at the information that we provided for employers, for their employees on our general guidance documents that are on that website that I gave earlier. And it really is following the CDC guidelines and the OSHA guidance 100%, right? Talking about communications with the employees, talking about self-screening at the beginning of every shift. So when anyone starts their shift on any given day, that the supervisor or the business owner really asks them those simple questions. And these are the questions I have to answer when I'm going into a public building at this point in time, which is, have you had a cough in the last, within the last 10 days? Do you have a fever? They take your temperature. And I don't know if everyone's going to be able to go to those certain extremes, but being able to make sure that the employees that are looking and feeling sick don't have to come to work, right? Make sure that the sick leave policies are flexible and consistent so that the employees have the ability to not have to come to work. Making sure that those employees that may be in high risk have other working opportunities other than what their maybe normal consistent duties had been in the past. And those are all listed on our general guidance forms for employers. And I think it's really important to consider this, because I agree with everybody else. If there's any resurgence that happens, it's going to set us back much further than where we have been in the last 2 months. And we don't want that. The governor doesn't want that. And we want to make sure that the recovery is healthy as we possibly can be.
Absolutely. And again, I wanted to remind you, Denise, and also a couple of comments on the comment line. And the questions are saying, don't apologize. I mean, you're on here to represent the interests. I mean, everybody is chosen here to represent the different points of view that are all legitimate and valid. And so the hope is that we're helping each other see a broader picture, and so that all the decisions that we do going forward are better informed. So just want you to know that you're not biased, and that this is something that's very scary. It's deadly, and we can't underestimate it. So and so these tensions of being able to work and live and feed your family and being able to live and be healthy, that people are making those decisions, and they made those decisions before this virus. And so thank you for that. We have a Mubaris Ravzi. He said he's a telecom manufacturer, and he has a huge opportunities to create jobs, and just wanted to know who he should talk to. He's Fiber Electronics, Baltimore City. Okay, there you go.
Me.
All
Talk
right.
to me.
Okay, so we will make sure that we make that connection. Other
Perfect.
folks. Alrighty. See, we got. Do you see any other questions, Matan?
Yes, let me go here. We've got a question from someone saying, I'm a physician and I have a startup in community health engagement and looking to see how I can work with the state. So similar question, and wondering if there's any leads there.
We definitely can put my business unit together in order to be able to provide some insight as to where they can go. If it's not with the Department of Commerce, we can certainly connect him with somebody that would be able to help.
Great, thank you. Cool.
Is
Yeah,
there a manufacturer's registry website where you can register as a state supplier of?
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct? I feel like at the day after the stay-at-home order was issued, I signed up for on this website, and I can't even.
Like a vendor list.
Yes.
A vendor list is what you're asking. So yes, and I'm assuming that you put something in through the resource.mema maryland.gov. Is that it? Also, we're talking the same language. If you want to, if you want to send me another email, I can connect you with the folks over at MEMA to see where that might reside at this point in time.
Great.
We also have a question. Someone wants to know where Oyen Handmade is and how they can access those products.
Well, we, again, up until March 13th, maintained a store at 2103 North Charles Street. I am not sure if and when we are going to reopen. Our store had been Saturdays only since 2009. And as you mentioned, Dante, there about people's feelings of safety when they enter into establishments, and like there really is, business is a communication, and it's a relationship, you know, and we have a communication opportunity and a opportunity to make our customers feel they're safest, and a responsibility as well to protect them and to protect ourselves. And so I think that as a business, when we first started in 2005, we've been online only. So the best place has always been and remains our website, oyenhandmade.com. We are still making, we are still bottling, we are still shipping. And because we maintain a separate manufacturing facility that is not the same location as our customer facing presence, we were able to continue working. We just implemented all those OSHA and CDC guidelines and changed our shifts so that fewer of us were working at the same time, and we were able to continue our e-commerce. So if you visit oyenhandmade.com, we are still shipping, and you can shop our entire line there.
And I've used this. So basically everyone on the call, although I do, Collins, I have to get to your restaurant. I was hoping, so that might be delayed a little bit, but as soon as we're able to, but I can testify to everybody that is on this panel that good ethical products, workers respect their workers, have good generous leave policies, and you know, I think have all the right kind of things. So Denise, you should feel like these are the model types of businesses that we want to see more of in Maryland. So we have, yeah. Did anyone else want to? Did we have one more? I think we have time for one more question.
Yeah, we have a quick one here that came in right at the beginning. Again, this is for you, Secretary. It says, are you going to publish a list of the successful applicants who are awarded the grants and loans? How, you know, where is information going to be made available about that?
Yeah, we don't have a specific place right now to post them. Right now, we're frantically trying to make sure that we get them out and awarded to the applicants. And in addition to that, it's a brand new system, so we're constantly looking to perfect the system and to see what we can do with it as far as extracting data. So everything we do in the public realm is public. We're just looking in order to be able to find the best time and place in order to be able to issue that information.
And again, I guess, Secretary, I'm sure people recognize you're in the height of it, but I think they want to, once the awards are made, that I'm sure you'll put it on your website, because I'm sure we don't want to have happen in Maryland. You had some of these big companies got a whole bunch of money from the federal programs, and so we want to, I'm sure we're not going to do that here in Maryland. So just want to make sure that we have a way to keep each other you know, open and transparent, which I know you're committed to. So I'm sure no one expects
they were not allowed. They were not allowed. All of our grants and loans, if you had over 50 employees, you were not eligible for any of it. So we had very strict restrictions and eligibility requirements for our grants. Neither the grant nor the loan program could be over 50 employees.
Great, that works out great. That's good.
And we did have one question about navigating unemployment issues. And
Yeah.
Senator, I didn't know if you wanted to just share quickly about how people can write to us and how we're forwarding on.
Yes, write to us, mary.washington at not anymore, mary.washington@senate.state.md.us, and we'll have a frame up for you to look at. But we can answer our 43rd District Response Team, my Senate office is focused on responding. I feel as though we are a lot of the senators and delegates, we are sort of subcontractors, unpaid subcontractors for DLR right now for these benefits, because our constituents are, and you know, there was a 9-hour a series of testimonies yesterday that was hosted by the Maryland General Assembly. Many people having long wait times. We're all trying to figure out how to work this out. So please, if there's any questions or concerns that you have, we will get it right to the secretary. And again, I want to thank everybody for being on this call. I just have about 5 minutes of wrap up. Just please stick on. I just wanted to let you know, if you're in the 43rd district or, you know, next to us, that we have had our 43rd district response assistance team. We kicked it off on March 16th, and we've been doing this in collaboration with our neighbors. We've serviced now over 258 families with groceries, medications, and hot meal assistance. And we've been doing this in partnership with various neighborhood mutual aid groups. These efforts have been really viable partners, like the Italian Cultural Center. They have a Be a Chef for a Day, Warm Food Initiative, Safe Streets. Again, another state funded initiative that is pivoting to do, it was focused on crime reduction, violent crime reduction, but is pivoting to and supporting the provision of food. Getco Cares, the Franciscan Center, Be More Community Foods, Pleasant Hope Church, the York Road Partnership, and also Councilman Bill Henry's office. We've had some really great neighbors who've been kicking in. Emily Weber, Mia Bloom, Sonia Merchant-Jones, Joanne Robinson. I want to thank all of you. These efforts to connect and support each other have been so important. We will continue these, and they've come through the 4 corners of our districts. We now have over 40 volunteers who are performing all these tasks. If you want to be a part of this, if you want to help us, we'll have that contact information on the slide. Maybe it's on there now. But we're continuing to do this work within the district, and we have our 1-800 line that if you need help and need support, 1-800-291-5457. Don't forget to fill out the census, everybody. This is really important. You know, I'm on the Complete Count Committee for the census, and also the Baltimore City Complete Count Committee. Resources, public health, all the things that we need are so important. Right now, Baltimore City is at 49% response rate, whereas the state is at a little over 60% response rate. We got to kick that up and do a better job. Remember that the census can be completed by a phone or mail or online. Don't forget to vote. We have a primary coming up. That's June 2nd, so make sure that you vote. Make sure you can find out if you're registered. It's unprecedented. And we just want to make sure that you remember that if you've completed your criminal sentence, that because of the 2016 legislation, you're entitled to vote. Our next COVID-19 community conversation is May 26th. It's going to be at 6 p.m. And the topic is mental wellness and resiliency. This is really key. We're talking about economic resiliency, our social resiliency, our mental health resiliency. How do we stay well in these times? How do we support each other? How do we make sure that people that aren't accustomed to spending a lot of time together are now spending time? People who, as you said earlier in the call, or on the webinar, folks that aren't accustomed to being unemployed, aren't accustomed to asking for help. All of us are now having to be much more open than we have in the past. So please join us on May 26th at 6 p.m. Again, in closing, I just want to thank all of you for joining us. Thank our guest speakers for sharing your knowledge, your experience, and your insights. These are incredibly challenging times, and I'm so grateful for all the work that's being done in support of our most vulnerable neighbors. Please reach out to me in my office if you have any additional questions, or you have some resources, if you have an idea, you have some ideas, whether it's, we don't need to wait till January for legislation. Both our city administration and our state administration have been very open to hearing from us. to do things that they can do now. So please reach out to me as a conduit for that. And the secretary has extended herself as well to be open to any ideas that those of you who are entrepreneurs, both social and manufacturing, doesn't matter what it is. We have a creative spirit that's going to help us stay healthy. I want you to stay safe. Please stay connected with each other, and have a great night.
Right, you too.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we say, no, you say